content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you. What's good, everybody? I'm GG. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers, man. Big up. Before I get things started, I want to give a shout out to all the haters out there, man. I hope y'all having a good afternoon, man. Peace out to y'all. And if you haven't done so already, man, could you please, I'm begging you, man, hit that bell notification button, the subscribe button, and the like button, man, so you can stay abreast of what's cracking here on the Green Gorilla channel. And as I always do, I want to give a shout out to all the people who support the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis. If I can get my mouse to act correctly here, man, for some reason I can't get it going. Hold on, man. It was going just a second ago, but now it's flashing in my face, so hold on for a second, man. Show must go on. The show must go on. For some reason, man, my computer is bugging out. Here we go, man. We're back on deck, man. Anyway, shout out to Lee Ways, Tahuti of New Comet, Michael Pierce, Ben Cannon Kenton, Seven Coast Dojo, Apex Prowler, Anthony Davis, I'm Just Jules, Brotherly Love 215, and Michael Ross. Big up to y'all, man. Big up to Black Swerve 404, An Honest Look, Sherlin Woe, Ricky Dawson, Stefan, Julius Ferguson, Lord Hamal, True 7360, Mr. Me Too, Call for President, and Broken Blade. Big up. Big up to Leading from the Back, Gold Professor, AKs and Curtains, H-Town, Rogish the Billmonger, BD Main, Adrian Thomas, Electrician 480, Benga, Cutting Up with the Jones, and Zanco 1. Big up. Big up to D. Scott, Path Guy, Pete Rock, Aaron Peters, Barnolas, Dardar, Vincent Lindsay, Beautiful Trauma, Quiz the Poet, Black Wizard, ADOS, and Jazz Tech. Big up. Big up to Shadow Observer, Sugar T, Artisan MC, Nasiana, Kyle J. Sura, Kareem, Troy Warren, Mrs. KP Bailey, Alan Wiley, The Face, and Life of Commerce. Big up. Big up to Dream Lit, A. Wilson's Ghost, Timothy Blewett, Jeffrey Speed, Marvin Battle Jr., Mark Holt, Adam, BGS Ibmore, Ignatz Mouse, and Brian Peaks. Big up. Big up to Papa Didas, Scott Haywood, Black Uru Strikes, Dr. Tree 33, Leroy Honeycutt, Supertech, 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, Karen S, and Charles Rogers. Big up. Big up to Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Charles Gilmore, Greg, Barry Little, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, Cameron 87, Dr. Rock, and Mark Swift. Big up. Big up to Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Coach Hotep, Old Soul Chief, Mr. Blue Collar, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178. Big up. Big up to Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, Red Pill Revelator, Aaron Infinite, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalan Jakala, Hostile Adept, and WPR1. And I can't forget my brothers David Carroll, Forrest Windu, and Kevin Samuels. Big up. On the Patreon side, I want to give a shout out to Chris Flowers, Christopher Burton, Dax BJ Live, Rashawn Phillips Sorrells, Keith Bass Jr., Nick, Rock One, Albert C., Dr. Ben Vincent, J. Cleveland Green, I Am the Light of My Father, Waffle Weave, Tyrone Hampton, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Andrew 219, Preserve Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi Momal, and Asangwa. Big up. Y'all deserve a round of applause, and you deserve some fanfare, man. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel. Please consider if you will, supporting the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis by developing a membership. Here's how you do it, and I'll be back with the show. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. All right, y'all, I'm back. I'm GG. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It is the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, with no chasers. And I want to give a shout out to Spain, man. I think you've been a member before, but thank you for renewing your membership. Or thank you for being on board. Appreciate that. Also, I want to give a shout out to Electrician 480. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your support, man. Thank you. He says, salute to you, GG. I really appreciate your research on this particular topic. Well, thank you. Thanks goes to you, bro. So anyway, man, you know what the topic is. I'm going to get right into it. I'm not going to delay and hold you any longer than I have to hold you. So for the most part, what I wanted to do was read an article. It's about 10 pages long, and then, I'm going to sign out. But the paper is called Restoring the Traditional Black Family. Okay, that's what the paper's called, man. And let's just get into it, man. Let's do it. Now, this paper was written by a congresswoman. Her name is Eleanor Holmes Norton. And the article was written over 30 years ago. I mean, it was written over 30 years ago, so go figure. Here we are, 2023, and the traditional family is nowhere in sight. There's a lot of arguing over who's right, who's wrong, who's sufficient, who's insufficient, who has the right attitude, who doesn't. Now there's this controversy surrounding passport bros. In particular, there's one boy, one young guy, I ain't gonna call him a boy, one young man who has been ousted from Brazil by a feminist who's, basically has contacted the consulate, because guys are out there looking for relationships. Maybe, I don't know. Look, whatever you want to do, man, with your time and your money and your resources, man, that's on you. But I mean, many of the issues that, black men now face are centered around a lack of traditional black families being developed, being formed, and, being entered into. So, and it's funny because this article was written by a woman, not a man, not a misogynist, but a woman who, prior to, I guess I would have to say prior to the advancement of feminist ideology permeating the culture, there was serious consideration given to what's going wrong with the black family. Now, instead of doing so, we've just said, to hell with black men being part of the family. Let's just create a new dynamic where the family primarily consists of women and children. So that's what we're looking at now. But anyway, this article was published in the New York Times magazine quite a bit of time ago, again, 1985. So let's take a gander at it. And if you want to, at some point, you can comment on it and tell me what your thoughts are. Okay? So Eleanor Holmes basically says, what would society be like if the family found it difficult to perform its most basic functions? We're beginning to find out. Half of all marriages in this country end in divorce, and half of all children will spend a significant period with only one parent. One parent. Startling and unsettling changes have already occurred in black family life, especially among the poor. Since the 1960s, birth rates among blacks have fallen dramatically. So black children being born, introduced into the world have fallen. Now you have a new dynamic, enter abortion into the equation. I would consider now that it's probably even less than then. Okay. But 2 out of every 3 black women having a first child are single compared to 1 out of every 6 women. So 1 out of every 3 black women. I don't know what the stats exactly are today. One could argue it's probably increased even more so. Okay. Today, well over half of black children in this country are born to single women. Why are female-headed households multiplying now when there is less discrimination and poverty than a couple of generations ago, when black family life was stronger? Again, this is hearkening. This is an allusion to, this is pointing in the direction of Moynihan scissors. Why are female-headed households multiplying now when there's less discrimination and poverty than a couple of generations ago? The disruption of the black family today is an exaggerated microcosm, a reflection of what has happened to the American family life in general. Public anxiety has mounted with the near doubling of the proportion of white children living with one parent, from 9% to 17% since 1970. Single parents of all backgrounds are feeling the pressures, the sheer economics of raising children primarily on the depressed income of the mother, a large component of the so-called feminization of poverty. The psychological and physical toll when one person, however advantaged, must be both mother and father, and the effects on children. And some people say, well, there is no negative effect on children. It just doesn't exist. There are no negative effects. That's what some people say. Oh, no negative effects. There are none. Okay. Shout out to Giagami. Appreciate the support. Appreciate that. Also, shout out to Dar. Appreciate that support, sir. Appreciate it. Okay. The stress on American family life was recently addressed by Senator Daniel P. Moynihan, Democrat of New York, on the 20th anniversary of his controversial Moynihan Report. Controversial. So very controversial. Why is the Moynihan Report so controversial? The original report confined its analysis to the black family. Moynihan, who in April delivered a series of lectures at Harvard on the family, said, I want to make this clear. This is not a black issue. Indeed, just last month, the problem of increasing poverty among all the nation's children was underscored in a major report from 2 federal agencies. Yet until recently, many blacks had an almost visceral reaction to mention of black family problems, meaning we're not supposed to have a conversation about it. Don't discuss it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't discuss it. Wounds to the family were seen as the most painful effect of American racism. Many blacks and their supporters have regarded talk of black family weaknesses as tantamount to insult and smear. Now, this is a woman speaking, not a man, a woman, black woman. So if you talk about the black family, and especially the kind of black families that are the most prevalent, then it is perceived as a smear. Some conservatives have taken signs of trouble in the black family as proof that the remaining problems of race are internal and have announced the equivalent of physician, heal thyself. In other words, slavery's over with, Jim Crow's over with, deal with it. The culture is the problem, not any larger systemic, institutional, or macroscopic forces. It's a subjective issue, a cultural issue. And it is a cultural issue to some degree. Because as the author says, at the heart of the crisis lies the self-perpetuating culture of the ghetto. And I've been doing series on the ghetto, but, and I'll get back to that. I just had to take a departure for a while because I had to, visit to other cities related to the passing of my grandmother. But at any rate, this destructive ethos began to surface 40 years ago with the appearance of permanent joblessness and the devaluation of working class black men. There we go. This is precisely one of the issues that Moynihan talked about when he wrote the report. Okay? This destructive ethos, the culture of the ghetto, began to surface 40 years ago with the appearance of permanent joblessness and the devaluation of working class black men. So this is a female author pinpointing the source of this ethos, okay? As this nation's post-World War II economy has helped produce a black middle class, it has also, ironically, been destroying the black working class and its family structure. Today, the process has advanced so far that renewal of the black family goes beyond the indispensable economic ingredients. So what may have started off as an economic issue has exacerbated, the author is implying, into something different. And she asserts that the family's return to its historic strength will require the overthrow of the complicated, predatory ghetto subculture. This is your Pookie culture that y'all don't like, and strag culture that you make an allusion to so often in this space. So it will require the overthrow of the complicated, predatory ghetto subculture, a feat demanding not only new government approaches, but active black leadership and community participation and commitment. Well, the problem here, though, is, and this article, again, was written in 1985. Okay? 1985. It's going to require active black leadership. But what is our leadership doing now? It's really actually falling so deep into the feminist narrative that men aren't essential to the family anymore. This is where we are now. But anyway, while this crisis was building, it received almost no public attention, in part because of the notorious sensitivity of the subject. The sensitivity is still there. Everybody's still sensitive about this. You can't say anything about it. In fact, men in this space, even making mention of it, are perceived as anathema. There's something wrong with you for thinking that there's something wrong with the current state of affairs, something awry in you and your value system. Yet 20 years ago, this is, if she wrote the article in 85, then she has to be talking about in the 60s. 20 years ago, MLK spoke candidly about the black family, spelling out the alarming statistics on the rate of illegitimacy. I read to you an article, a series of articles, and in one of the primary article that I read to you by a woman named Belinda Brown, the whole concept of illegitimacy has been erased. It's gone now. There is no illegitimacy anymore. There is no necessity to have a male involved in family life anymore. You're ancillary, an afterthought. The primary family unit consists of a woman and her children. So anyway, Ms. Holmes says the increase in female-headed households and the rise of families on welfare. This is alarming. This was what MLK was saying. Okay, this is alarming. All these kids without daddies and an increase in female-headed households, rising on welfare. There's something wrong here. The black family, King asserted, have become fragile, deprived, and often psychopathic. There's your tango of pathology. They don't talk about King in this light. No. You won't hear any references to MLK in this regard. So King relied in part on the Moynihan report, written when the senator was an assistant secretary of labor. So this is what Moynihan was, an assistant secretary of labor. Basically, he was probably, more than anything else, trying to find a means by which to give black men to work, to give them a leg up in the labor market so that they can begin to develop families. Not today. Many were stunned by what one critic called the report's salacious discovery. Its discussion of illegitimacy, matriarchy, and welfare, and its view that black family structure had become, in its own words, a tangle of pathology, capable of perpetuating itself without assistance from the white world. As a result, so it began to, develop legs of its own. Okay. As a result, the report's concern with remedies, including jobs, and its call for national family policy were eclipsed. So everybody's worried about the pathology part and the blame part. Who's to blame about it? But nobody even gave a damn about trying to develop solutions to the issues. Let's not even discuss trying to solve the issues. Let's not even try to develop a means by which to develop any remedies. Let's just worry about who was finger pointed at. Who's to blame? When you go to the hospital, man, you got to develop a treatment, a plan for treatment. All the things, the steps, and the issues that took place before, they need to be remedied. But right now, we got to get to the task of trying to attend to your health to save your life, especially if you're going into the emergency room and there's something critical. So she says there was delay back then. And she says this delay has been costly to blacks and to the country. When King spoke out, the statistics he characterized as alarming showed that 2.5 times as many black families as white ones were headed by women. Today, it's almost 3.5 times as many, 43% of black families compared with 13% of white families. Now, I know these numbers have changed. Okay, they probably have increased dramatically. Since 1970, out-of-wedlock births have become more prevalent throughout society, almost doubling among whites to 11%. But among blacks, births to single women have risen from 38% in 1970 to 57% in 1982. And this article was written again in 85. Okay? 85. White families headed by women have often proved just as effective as two-parent families in raising children. While families headed by women have often proved just as effective as two-parent families in raising children. The most critical danger facing female-headed households is poverty. Now, and I have this highlighted because, there's some questions surrounding this in my head. Because it is the case that in some instances, there are success stories with these kind of families. But on average, one could argue there's more likelihood, or there is a greater likelihood that it will result in tragedy or dysfunction. Okay? The most critical danger facing female-headed households is poverty. 70% of black children under the age of 18 who live in female-headed families are being brought up in poverty. In '83, the median income for such households was $8,000 compared to almost $32,000 for two-parent families of all races in which both spouses work. Without the large increase of female-headed households, black family income would have increased by 11% in the 70s. Instead, it fell by 5%. As last month's report from the Congressional Research Service and the Congressional Budget Office pointed out, the average black child can expect to spend more than 5 years of his childhood in poverty. The average white child, 10 months. Buried beneath the statistics is a world of complexity originating in the historic atrocity of slavery. I've been saying this, and linked to modern discrimination and its continuing effects. What has obscured the problem is its delicacy and its uniqueness. Now, everybody wants to say that this whole issue is so delicate. I don't understand what's delicate about it. Shout out to Emerald. Emerald is. Shout out to that brother. And shout out to Cubit Wrong. Shout out to him. Appreciate that. It's so delicate. It's so delicate. The black family has been an issue in search of leadership. No doubt. Discussion of problems in the black family has been qualitatively different from debates on voting rights or job discrimination. Fear of generating a new racism, let's tell it like it is, a misogynoir, to be quite honest. Fear of generating a new racism has foreclosed whatever opportunity there may have been to search for relief, driving the issue from the public agenda and delaying for a generation the search of workable solutions. Today, when nearly half of all black children are being raised in poverty, further delay is unthinkable. We still have not attended to the issue. We still have not even considered attending to the issue. Can't talk about it, can't discuss it. Because you got a whole bunch of social justice warriors who preclude it as a possibility. Shout out to Ghetto User, man. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the donation, man. Appreciate that. Blacks themselves have been stunned by recent disclosures of the extent of the growth of poor, alienated, female-headed households. The phenomenon is outside the personal experience of many black adults. Not today, I don't think so. I don't think so today. Not today. Many have overcome deep poverty and discrimination only because of the protection and care of stable, traditional, and extended families. As recently as the early 60s, 75% of black households were husband and wife families. Early 60s, 75% of black households were husband and wife families. Now, I don't know about you, man, but what has changed so drastically in the behavior and the comportment of men to where it's unthinkable? Now it just can't happen. Like, we can't form stable and traditional families anymore. This figure represents remarkable continuity. It is about the same as those reported in census records from the late 19th century. Indeed, the evidence suggests that most slaves most slaves grew up in two-parent families reinforced by ties to large extended families. Slaves. The sharp rise in female-headed households involves mostly those with young children and began in the mid-60s. The phenomena, while by no means a trend that permeates the entire black community, affects a significant portion of young people today, many of whom are separated economically, culturally, and socially from the black mainstream. They have been raised in the worst of the rapidly deteriorating ghettos of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, in cities or neighborhoods that lost first the white and then the black middle and working classes. Drugs, crimes, and pimps took over many of the old communities. And guess what happens? You get young thugs, YNW Mellies, just a whole bunch of unstructured youth who don't have any male discipline around to keep them in check. There's your Pookie factory right there. She said that, she's telling you, the Pookie factory is the ghetto culture in single parent households headed by females. It is what it is. It is what it, and this is a woman saying this. I'm not, at this point, I'm kind of in agreement with her, but I mean, hey, this is a congresswoman, black congresswoman. Blacks remaining were often trapped and isolated, cut off from the values of the black working poor and middle class, where husbands often worked two jobs. Wives returned to work almost immediately after childbirth, and extended families of interdependent kin are still more prevalent than among whites. A complete explanation of black family disruption does not emerge from a roundup of the usual suspects, including the many factors that make American family life generally less stable these days. So it's not, she said this is part of the issue, but not the complete tale. So here's part of the issue, but not the complete story. The ease and relative acceptance of separation. Nowadays, marriage as an institution is just like, it's like a phony bill of sale that has no punishment for breaking the contract that you enter into or you engage in. Like, if there's no punishment for violating the terms of the contract, then why not violate the contract? Divorce and childbirth outside of marriage, the decline of religion and other traditional family reinforcing institutions. We already know the black church has been asleep at the wheel. And welfare rules, here we go. Here we go. This is a black woman saying it, so don't put it on us now. Welfare rules that discourage family unity and penalize economic initiative. Anecdotal explanations. The girl mothers are said to want love and receive affection from a baby. The boy fathers reportedly brag about making babies. So there you got your strags and your pookies. So this explanation, she says, is part of the issue, but it's not the complete story. Because such anecdotes do not explain how the strong presumption in favor of marriage before childbearing has been overcome so often. The emergence of single women as the primary guardians of the majority of black children is a pronounced departure that began to take shape following World War II. So she goes into the history of it. Ironically, the women and children, the most visible manifestations of the change, do not provide the key to the transformation. The breakdown begins with working class black men whose loss of function in the post-World War II economy has led directly to their loss of function in the family. There you go. Let me start with all the effects, though. So it's primarily men's marginalization in the labor market, she is alluding to or implying, that is the cause or the culprit of the issue. It's the culprit of the problem. Moynihan said, listen, franchise these black guys. Let's get some programs together and do something. Enfranchise them so that they can begin to develop traditional families again. Because right now what we have is a tangle of pathology in these communities. But of course, because the situation is so delicate, for who God know, I don't know who. It just makes common sense to me that if it takes two people to form a child through sex, then it ought to take more than one person to take care of the kid, to develop and to grow into a functioning and a flourishing member of any society or culture. But now we got all these newfangled ideas and nobody wants to call out women or men who do this. We just want to say, okay, this is the new normal. In the booming post-World War I economy, black men with few skills could find work. Even the white South, which denied black man a place in its wage economy, could not deprive him of an economic role in the farm family. The poorest, most meanly treated sharecropper was at the center of the work it took to produce the annual crop. And I had that highlight. Everything I have highlighted was important to me when I read it. So back after World War I, you didn't have to have a college degree in order to get a job. You didn't have to have so-called soft skills. You could find work with your hands. We've been talking about the outsourcing of jobs, the mechanization of the workforce, and the deindustrialization of the economy, and a movement away from agricultural-based work to city-based, or, which would be manufacturing work. All of that evaporated. As refugees from the South, the generation of World War I migrants differed in crucial respects from World War II, their generation, the World War II generation. The World War I arrivals were enthusiastic, voluntary migrants, poor in resources, but frequently middle class in aspiration. They were at the bottom of a society that denied them the right to move up very far, but they got a foothold in a burgeoning economy. Family stability was the rule. According to a 1925 study in New York City, 5 out of 6 children under the age of 6 lived with both parents. 5 out of 6. Nationally, a small middle class emerged, later augmented by the jobs generated by World War II, service in the armed forces, and the post-war prosperity that sometimes filtered down to urban blacks. Today's inner city blacks were not a part of these historical processes. Some are the victims of the flight of manufacturing jobs. I said it. Others were part of the last wave of Southern migrants or their offspring, arriving in the 50s and the 60s. They often migrated not because of new opportunities, but because of the evaporation of old ones. Mechanized farming made their labor superfluous in agriculture. But unlike the blacks of earlier generations and European immigrants, later black migrants were also superfluous in post-war cities as manufacturing work for the less skilled and poorly educated declined. I said it. Been saying this. Go look back at my videos, you'll see I've been saying this. Today's post-industrial society, demanding sophisticated preparation and training, has only exacerbated these problems. This permanent generational joblessness is at the core of the meaning of the American ghetto. The resulting powerful aberration transforms life in poor black communities and forces everything else to adapt to it. The female-headed household is only one consequence. You got the underground economy, drug culture, epidemic crime, even a highly unusual disparity between the actual number of men and women. All owe their existence to the cumulative effect of chronic joblessness among men. Over time, deep structural changes have taken hold and created a different ethos. And she's about to talk about your pookies. An entire stratum of black men, many of them young, no longer performs its historic role in supporting a family. Many are unemployed because of the absence of jobs, or unemployable because their ghetto origins leave them unprepared for the job market. Others have adapted to the demands of the ghetto, the hustle, the crime, the drugs. Just think of all the rappers out there. But the skills necessary to survive in the streets are those least acceptable in the outside world. Then she says the macho role. I don't know what that means. Some things, she says, I'm not quite certain about. But the macho role cultivated in the ghetto makes it difficult for many black men unable to earn a respectable living to form households and assume the roles of husband and father. Generationally entrenched joblessness, joined with the predatory underground economy, forms the basis of a marginal lifestyle. Relationships without the commitments of husband and father result. This qualitative change in fundamental family relationships could have occurred only under extreme and unrelentingly destructive conditions. I agree with her there. I agree with her there. Shout out to Yo PTV2. Shout out to you, my brother. Thank you for the donation. Neither poverty nor cyclical unemployment alone could have had this impact. After all, poverty afflicts most of the world's people. If economic and social hardships could in themselves destroy family life, the family could not have survived as the basic human unit throughout the world. I'm glad somebody said it. I'm glad somebody said it. But as I said yesterday when I read from the paper from Belinda Brown, you have a whole contingency of people nowadays who say, to hell with the family. We want to destroy it because the family is the seat of oppression for women. So we have to smash the patriarchy. How do we do it? We do it by smashing the men. Smash those guys. To hell with those guys. The transformation in poor black communities goes beyond poverty. These deep changes are anchored in a pervasively middle-class society that associates manhood with money. And I've been saying this, and this is crucial to me, right? If it is the case that being able to go out and get money, being a breadwinner, is considered as masculine activity, then why is there no rush to support and endorse men, especially from the community from which we come, to go out and get it? Why is there no promotion? Why are there no programs? Why are we not trying to put black boys in these hoods to work and to improve their condition? As soon as you try to do so, you got a cadre of angry ass women who are like, well, it's unfair, it's unconstitutional. It's unfair, it's unjust. But then when you take all these polls and you ask women, what kind of man do you want? They want a man that's gainfully employed and that makes more money than they do. They all want it, by and large. I want a man that's at my level or making more. But at the same time, you don't want to offer any support for programs to ameliorate their condition and their ability to actually be competitive in the market. You want to soak all that up for yourself. Make it make sense to me, because I'm confused about it. I just don't understand it. I would like for a woman to explain it to me. I don't get it. I'll leave the link. I don't understand it. And this just dovetails with the recent research. Black men are even today on a downwardly mobile track. On a downwardly mobile track. It's getting worse. This is not improving. It's getting worse. This article was written in 1985. Shocking figures show a long, steep, and apparently permanent decline in black men's participation in the labor force, even at peak earning ages. In 1948, before the erosion of unskilled and semi-skilled city and rural jobs had become pronounced, black male participation in the labor force was 87%. So all this, Negroes are innately lazy is a damn lie. It's a lie. You give black men opportunity, they're going to get out there and work. If you give them an alternative to the ghetto, hood culture, underground activity. Even today it's being promoted. No disrespect. I like watching, crime shows or whatever, dramatic representations of what the life is like in the ghetto or whatever. It might be entertaining, but come on, man, the whole culture is permeated with this nonsense. Take off my coat, clearing my throat. Done got warm up in here. And it's still happening. The point is, we're still on a downwardly mobile track. In the generation since the 60s, however, black men have experienced a dramatic loss of jobs, dropping from an employment rate of 74% to 55% in 1982, according to the Center for the Study of Social Policy in Washington. While white male employment slipped in that period, much of the white decline, unlike that of blacks, is attributed to early retirement. Since 1960, the black male population of the black male population over 18 has doubled, but the number employed has lagged badly. These figures tell a story not only of structural unemployment, but of structural changes in low-income black families. The employment rates of young blacks have been the most devastating and militate against the establishment of stable marriages. This year, for instance, black teenagers overall had an unemployment rate of 39%, 2.5 times that of white teenagers. The loss of roles as workers has led to the acceptance of other roles for financial gain, many of them antisocial. And this is the Pookie phenomenon that you guys talk about so much. Aside from the fact that large numbers of young men are in prison, disabled by drugs, or otherwise marginal or unavailable as marriage partners, there is an unusual disparity between the sheer numbers of black men and black women. Among whites, the ratio of men to women does not change significantly until age 50, when men's shorter life expectancy creates a gap. But among blacks, beginning at age 20, women outnumber men significantly enough to have a major impact upon the possibility of marriage. In other words, just in sheer numbers, it ain't enough men to go around. Not enough males to go around to marry women. Some argue persuasively that the female-headed family is an adaptation that facilitates coping with hardship and demographics. This seems undeniable as an explanation, but unsatisfactory as a response. We holding it down. We holding it down. We there. We keeping it together. Okay, cool. Admirable. But unsatisfactory. Black woman saying it now. Black congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. Are we adapting? We doing the best we can. Well, we got to do something different because this ain't working. Are we willing to accept an adaptation that leaves the majority of black children under the age of 6, the crucial foundation years of life, living in poverty? Given a real choice, poor blacks, like everybody else, would hardly choose coping mechanisms over jobs, educational opportunity, and family stability. Yet, the remedy for ghetto conditions is not as simple as providing necessities and opportunities. The ghetto is not simply a place. It has become a way of life. Just as it took a complex of social forces to produce ghetto conditions, it will take a range of remedies to dissolve them. The primary actors unavoidably are the government and the black community itself. The government is deeply implicated in black family problems. Its laws enforced slavery before the Civil War and afterward created and sanctioned pervasive public and private discrimination. The effects on the black family continue to this day. Given the same opportunities as others, blacks would almost certainly have sustained the powerful family traditions they brought with them from Africa, where society itself is organized around the family. You know, the funny thing about all this is, man, it astounds me that we keep thinking that family or the institution of family and marriage is something that's, unique to Western culture. It's not. Healthy and stable family life, which integrates fully, both men and women, is not something that is only present in Western culture. It's not. Why do we keep pretending that the family is a Western European fabrication? Why? Or construction? Why is this? Quite apart from its historical role, the government cannot avoid present responsibility. It can choose, as it now does, to ignore and delay the search for ways to break the hold of the ghetto, such as early intervention with young children and training and education for the hardcore poor, which is not being done. It's not being done for, especially for black boys. It ain't being done. And as soon as you propose it, again, there's some woman, white, yellow, brown, black, coming in. It's not fair. What about the girls? Although programs capable of penetrating ghetto conditions have proved elusive, the current government posture of disengagement is folly. They're not disengaged. They're ramping up the production and the subsidization of single-parent households. That's what they're doing. With the poor growing at a faster rate than the middle class, the prospect is that succeeding generations will yield more, not fewer, disadvantaged blacks. An American version of a lumpen proletariat, the so-called underclass, without work and without hope, existing at the margins of society, could bring down the great cities, sap resources and strength from the entire society, and, lacking the usual means to survive, prey upon those who possess them. It's a problem. Eventually it's going to come to bite America in the behind, is what she's saying. Perhaps the greatest gap in corrective strategies has been the failure to focus on prevention. Remedies for deep-rooted problems, from teenage pregnancy to functional illiteracy, are bound to fail when we leave the water running while we struggle to check the overflow. A primary incubator for ghetto problems is the poor, female-headed household. Uh-oh! A primary incubator for ghetto problems is the poor, female-headed household. Let me say it again, man. A primary incubator for ghetto problems is the poor, female-headed household. Stopping its proliferation would prevent a spectrum of often intractable social and economic problems. But you can't tell them that, though, because it's too delicate. Getting your fee-fees and your feels and all that. Oh, no, you can't tell me nothing about my babies. Oh, man, let me stop, man. Let me stop being theatrical. Then they start coming with the hand-clapping energy. You can't tell me there's something wrong with me having a... Anyway, remedies often focus at opposite ends, either on the provision of income or of services. Neither seems wholly applicable to entrenched ghetto conditions. Public assistance alone, leaving people in the same defeatist environment, may reinforce the status quo. This is why welfare ain't working. I said a long time ago, one of the things, the new form of oppression is ghettoization directly after Jim Crow, ghettoization and mass incarceration and the ramping up of the technocratic, bureaucratic welfare state. That's the new Jim Crow. The new Jim Crow is directly after Jim Crow, you got ghettoization and the technocratic, bureaucratic administration of paternalistic welfare programs and the ramping up of a carceral state for black men. That's it. That's how they contain what they consider to be a problem with a group of people, a demographic that no longer serves the labor function that it used to perform for them. The exploitative labor function that it used to perform. So you quarantine it. You put it in a location, you quarantine it, close it off with highways and zoning, and you develop an administrative bureaucracy that overwatches them and dictates what they need to do in order to subsist. The service orientation has been criticized for using a disproportionate amount of available resources relative to the results obtained, meaning the welfare system ain't working. The author says more appropriate solutions may lie between income and service strategies. Programs are more likely to be successful if they provide a rigorous progression through a series of steps leading to graduation. This process, including a period of weaning from public assistance, might prove more successful in achieving personal independence. Such programs will be far more disciplined than services to the poor generally have been. They would concentrate on changing lifestyles as well as imparting skills in education. The test of their effectiveness would be the recipient's progress in achieving economic self-sufficiency. To reach boys and men, especially the hardcore unemployed, more work needs to be done to cull the successful aspects of training and job programs. But you can't get that. Can't get it, you cannot have it. You will not get it. Because there is, like I said, a cadre of angry women who feel that any way in which your life is enhanced and they don't have access to it, that's unfair and unjust. Now, they can have all kinds of programs for themselves and their demographic, but when it comes to you and yours, oh no, but it ends up hurting them in the long run. And that's what they can't see. They see immediate gratification, immediate self-satisfaction as the means by which, or I'm better than you, I'm magical, you are destitute and dusty and crusty and incorrigible. This is the kind of attitude that is sparking the gender war right now. It is untenable to abandon the hardcore unemployed, as the Reagan administration has done, by moving to a jobs program that focuses on the most rather than the least trainable. Ghetto males will not simply go away. Pookies ain't going nowhere. As we now see, they will multiply themselves. Go ahead, Eleanor. I said this a long time ago. You can't get rid of black men in the ghetto. You cannot. What is it you propose to do? Like, I've heard people say, I ain't gonna say no names, we need to get rid of the unproductive men. What you gonna do, man? Round them up and put them in a damn gas chamber like fucking Hitler, man? What you gonna do, bruh? They ain't going nowhere. They gonna have sex and reproduce and create the same tangle of pathology over and over and over again. I say this, and I'm asking a question. No disrespect. I understand that guys who are good guys deserve something. But think about the whole allegory in the Bible of the prodigal son. What does it say? What is the prodigal son about? Disentangle it from any of the reservations you might have about the theological implications of it. Just look at the moral message of the prodigal son. Or think about this. If you're in a hospital, emergency room, who are you going to treat first? Somebody who got a runny nose or somebody with a bullet hole, man? Runny nose or a bullet hole? A broken arm or I can't breathe because I got COVID-19? Which one you gonna treat first? You're gonna treat the patients. Now this is the medical model though. This one could argue this is perceived as, like as I've been reading from the dark ghettos, this can be perceived as a medical model. The ghetto boys ain't going nowhere unless we do something. The welfare program, a brilliant New Deal invention, now stretched to respond to a range of problems never envisioned for it. There you go. Look. I already gave you the rundown on how welfare came to be. It started off with mother's pensions programs. Then it was forced to morph and to change into AFDC. And then single mothers became the primary beneficiaries as opposed to widows. We're talking about a widows program that has been expanded and expanded and expanded. With little to no foresight about what the actual issue is. Putting Band-Aids on bullet wounds. Speaking of bullet wounds. Although welfare enjoys little support anywhere along the political spectrum, it continues for lack of an alternative. I'm going to tell you what could have been the alternative to welfare from the beginning. Just the inclusion of black males into the same kind of lives and subsidization and programs that white boys got, white families got. That's all that had to be done. That's all that had to be done. You didn't have to do anything differently. All you had to do is say, okay, let's just be fair here. We've been, exploitative. We've been malevolent long enough. If we're going to give subsidies to white boys, we're going to give the same subsidies to these Negroes. We're going to give them the GI Bill. We're going to give them FHA loans. We're going to cut out the practices of restrictive covenants. We're going to make sure that, we introduce them into the workforce. Instead, what happened is, as soon as you get the Civil Rights Act, you get a bunch of women who come in and they hijack it, white women. They come in, they hijack it, and place themselves in a position to where they're empowered, and we've been rolling on that train ever since. And it has disastrous effects for black people in the hood. Now, I ain't saying women, should be left out altogether, But I mean, come on, man. Like, you ever heard of the term Washishu? Wachichu. It's a Native American term. Wachichu. He who saves the best meat for himself. He who takes the best for himself and then leaves other people to scraps. Wachichu. Mine. Nobody else. Mine. We got to smash the patriarchy. Even though black men didn't even have any responsibility for establishing the so-called unjust, exploitative, marginalizing, violent patriarchy that these women complain about. Mine, and I want it. Mine. Reconceived, a public assistance program could reach single mothers and offer them vehicles to self-sufficiency. The counterparts of young women on welfare are working downtown or attending high school or junior college on grants to low-income students. Far from foreclosing such opportunities because a woman has a child, public assistance should be converted from the present model of passive maintenance to a program built around education or work and prospective graduation. Studies of the hardcore unemployed have shown women on welfare to be the most desirous of, open to, and successful with training and work. Some, especially with young children, will remain at home, but most want work or training because it is the only way out of the welfare life. Some promising experiments in work and welfare are underway in cities such as San Diego and Baltimore, but the old workfare approach, as administered as another form of welfare with no attempt to break the cycle of dependency, is self-defeating. Gainful employment, even if public jobs for those unaccommodated by the private sector, would have beneficial effects beyond earning a living. Jobs and training would augment self-esteem by exposing women to the values and disciplines associated with work, allowing them to pass on to their children more than their own disadvantages. The ghetto, more than most circumscribed cultures, seeks to perpetuate itself and is ruthless in its demand for conformity. However, it contains institutions of the larger society, schools, churches, community groups. With minor additional resources, schools, for example, could incorporate more vigorous and focused ways to prevent teenage pregnancy. That ain't happening, not today. I mean, they might tell them, but that ain't happening today. If pregnancy occurs, girls could be motivated to remain in school even after childbirth, thus allowing an existing institution to accomplish what training programs in later life do more expensively and with greater difficulty. Now, the funny thing about this, though, no disrespect to the woman, because I believe she is spitting to some degree, but what she proposes here, she says that the primary cause of the problem is black males being marginalized in the labor market. But here she goes, talking about what to do to accommodate single mothers. Like, why? Why? Here we get a long, detailed, in-depth analysis of what we need to do to get women to work and to elevate themselves, but we don't have any protracted plan on the boys who become men, who become the catalyst for the reason why women ain't getting married and the decline of the black family, the traditional black family. If the problem is male-centric, then why not develop programs for men? Why not develop some exhaustive thought process about how to deal with what is going on with their existence and their experience? Schools and other community institutions also need to become much more aggressive with boys on the true meaning and responsibilities of manhood and the link between manhood and family. Otherwise, many boys meet little resistance to the ghetto message that associates manhood with sex, but not responsibility. So we keep the girls in school even if they get pregnant. Training programs and such. When it comes to schools with the boys, just teaching the true meaning of manhood. That's it? That's it? I'm almost done, so I'm leaving a link if you want to say something. If you don't want to say something, I'm good with it. I'm about to fade out. Anyway, most important, nothing can substitute for or have greater impact than the full-scale involvement of the black community. Respect for the black family tradition compels black initiative. Ain't no black family tradition today. Everybody got baby bumps. I want a baby bump. Baby, I look at my baby bump. Baby bump, baby bump. I got a baby. Look at my baby. I'm a baby. I got a baby. Today, blacks are responding. Many black organizations are already involved, including the Urban League, please. The NAACP, please. The National Council of Negro Women and the National Urban Coalition. Ain't worked, has it? In 1983, the country's major black leaders endorsed the frank statement of the problems of the black family and a call for solutions. The statement, published by the Joint Center for Political Studies, a black research center in Washington, represented the first consensus view by black leadership on the problems of the black family. Significantly, it went beyond a call for government help, stressing the need for black leadership in community efforts, which, by the way, if this is 85, they failed. They failed. With the increase in the number of black public officials, many black mayors, legislators, and appointed officials control some of the resources that could shape change. Didn't work. Didn't work. Although they cannot redesign the welfare system by themselves, for example, some are in a position to experiment with model projects that could lead to more workable programs, such as supplementing welfare grants with training or work opportunities for single mothers, promoting family responsibility and pregnancy prevention from boys and girls through local institutions, and encouraging the completion of high school for single teenage parents. Again, work opportunities and training for single mothers, but the whole problem is black men not being, they ain't having no jobs. Man, I don't understand this, bro. Look, I'm flabbergasted. Oh man, I can't, man. Man. So all we need to do is know that what being a man is. That's enough? You went in all of this conversation about the market, deindustrialization, outsourcing the jobs. But we have no development of a plan for these men, but we want the training for the single parents. Keep them in school. Oh, man. Anyway, the new black middle class, a product of the same period that saw the weakening of the black family, still has roots in the ghetto through relatives and friends. From churches, Girl Scout troops, and settlement houses to civil rights organizations, boys clubs, and athletic teams, the work of family reinforcement can be shared widely. Ain't no family reinforcement today. None. The possibility for creative community intervention are many, from family planning and counseling in various roles as surrogate parents and grandparents. Man, all this surrogate parents and grandparents stuff need to stop. Where you think your mama is your grandmama, you think that's your mama. That creates dysfunction of its own accord. When you think your grandma, your mama, and your mama, your sister. Your grandmama, your mama, and your mama, your sister. Then you get mad when your daughter act like your sister, huh? That's an entendre there. Most people don't understand that one. You thought your grandmama was your mama, and your mama was your sister, but now you mad because your daughter or your son think you they brother or something, huh? Take it to the chin. Community daycare, and simple but crucial consciousness raising. Most important is passing on the enduring values. Look, let me just say this. If you got enough traditional families around, everybody's going to pay attention to the kids anyway. Like when I grew up in the neighborhood I grew up in before it became the ghetto, because it wasn't always the ghetto when I was young. It turned and morphed into a ghetto, okay? But when I was there initially, everybody knew everybody's kids. It wasn't no families around with a whole bunch of single moms and all that when I was like 9, 10. What didn't exist. Everybody knew everybody's kids. So you take care of them in common. Like everybody respects everybody else's parents. Anyway, the last sentence, man, most important is passing on the enduring values that form the central content of the Black American heritage: hard work, education, respect for family, not today though, and notwithstanding the denial of personal responsibility, achieving a better life for one's children. And that's the end of it, man. Got something to say? Now it's time to say it. I'm going to give you a few minutes. You ain't got nothing to say, I'm out of here, man. We're going to take this quick commercial break. I'll be back in a second. Well, since ain't nobody got anything to say about this, man, I'll holler at y'all on the next one, man. Peace out.